Sorry it's been a while since I posted a video. I've really gotten into remote control cars and just doing other stuff. But tomorrow's the 4th of July, and it's been quite a while since I've done a video and put it on my YouTube. So I'm going to hook y'all up with one right now. What I'm going to do for 4th of July is some baby back ribs. This is 3 racks of ribs. I'm going to show you how I prep them, how I marinate them, and then lastly how I smoke them and how they turn out on my Traeger grill. So these cost me about 38 bucks, and I bought them at Sam's, which if you don't have Sam's, your neck of the woods, Costco, or your local grocery store. But I use the pork baby back ribs, and this is my baby back rib recipe. I'll get back to you in just a minute once I get these cleaned off and show you the next step. Now I've got my ribs basically rinsed off. I don't like to take them straight out of the pack and not at least rinse them off. I like to rinse everything off, and that includes my briskets, you know, my steaks, any meat. I always rinse it off before I cook it. So a lot of people, this next step, they'll use a knife when they trim the membrane off, and then they'll also trim the fat off. I like to leave the fat on. I cook my ribs to how my family likes them, and a little bit of fat. The ribs aren't really fatty. The fat seems to kind of render down and helps keep the ribs a little moist. This recipe that I cook, how I cook my ribs, if I shorten the cooking time, they would be a competition style rib. I do put that much preparation into them, like they are competition style rib, but I cook them where the meat easily comes off the bone. Competition ribs kind of got to have a little bite to them when you pull the ribs off the bone. When you take that first bite, it's kind of got to not be tough, but got to give a little tug on it. Mine, I like them to where you can almost pull the ribs straight out. When you slice it, the bones coming out. So that's just how I cook my ribs. And when I get into cooking times, I'll kind of tell you the times I cook and what temps, and then you can kind of go from there. And if you want to cook them like a competition style rib, then you would shorten your cooking time, is basically how you would do it. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this first step and show you how I pull the membrane off. So here's my ribs. Like I said, I don't trim any of the fat. You see there's not a whole lot of fat. There's a little bit there. I could come in and trim this out, but I'm going to leave it. That's just how my family likes them. So here's my first rack of ribs. I'm just going to show you on one rack of ribs, just for time's sake for the video, not to keep it really long. But here we go. Best thing to use for this is the back of a spoon or a knife or a fork. Using a knife on this really doesn't work. What you do is you kind of get behind the rib, and this process is a little tough, but the time you spend here, this does make a difference. Let me try it from this way. Sometimes getting the ribs one way or another will, yeah, there you go. So you see how I'm just underneath the rib. Let me show you. See how I'm just got it in between that membrane and the rib? So that's what you want to do, is take the back of that and just slowly work it, and then you kind of pull it. And as you're pulling it, that membrane is actually coming up, and that's fine. You're gonna tear it. That's what this paper towel is for. Just grab it like this. If it gets too slippery, just grab your paper towel and you just be careful when you get to the ends here, and on this end it will try to tear, and then it is kind of a pain to get the last little bit off. So just take your time and just pull it, and you see that membrane's coming right out. again. Like, see this flap here? Now this here, I will cut completely off. On this side, there's just no sense to it. A little bit more of that membrane. I'm going to go ahead and trim this little piece off here in the back too. So that's just kind of wasted flap. And so there you go. That's how you pull basically the membrane off of the ribs. And this clear muscle, kind of translucent, that does make the ribs a little bit more tough. How I cook them though, it's not 100% necessary, but I'd say 95% of guys who barbecue will tell you pull the membrane off. It does make it just a little bit more tasty and a little less tough. So let me get the other racks cleaned up like this, and then I'll be back to show you what I use to marinate these bad boys. Now what I got, my ribs they're all kind of trimmed out in the back. They did have a little bit of slop in the back, so I did trim that out. Got the membrane off. So now what I'm gonna do is show you basically the rubs I use. Now this is completely up to you. These happen to just be my 3 favorite rubs of trial and error for doing ribs. Rubs, it's completely up to your taste. So go with what you like, what you know. If not, kind of experiment. This, like I said, is just what I like. The first one here, and I think I bought this one, is Rub Some Butt. I think I got this at Bass Pro Shops. I use this on my pork. This rub here, this John Henry's pecan rub, this stuff is awesome. I use this on just about everything. I even put some of this on shrimp when I barbecue it. This stuff is really tasty. Now this rub was 10 bucks. This rub I think is $9. $9.99, so it's 10 bucks. And now this one, this I have to buy at a specialty, like a Barbecues Galore. It's called Barbecue Outfitters here in my town. You can pick it up on Amazon. I never really buy this size. They didn't have the bigger size. The bigger size is like 2.5 times this, and it's like $18. I've had this about a week, and you can see how much I use. I put it on steaks, like I said, shrimp, everything. And then this one here is from Kansas City Cowtown. Kansas City Cowtown. This is called the Squeal Hog Rub. This stuff is really tasty too. Now I buy this at World Market. It's the only place I've been able to find it. I have not looked online for it. I'm sure you can pick it up online. This little bottle's $5. So this is my 3-part rub. I have seen some people that let me back up here a second. If you're cooking competition style ribs, you would trim these out. What the judges are looking for is they want to see in their boxes uniformed ribs, like the same size. So a lot of guys will sit there and they'll cut to where this piece, all the bones, the ribs are completely uniform. Like I said, I'm not going to do that because this is what my family eats. I'm cooking for my family, not for a competition. But if you were, that's what you would do. I think the gentleman's name on YouTube that's really knowledgeable about competitions, there's a lot out there, but a guy I really like, his name is, I believe it's Malcolm Reed. I'll see about putting a link to his video down in the description box if I remember the time I'm editing it. So you can kind of see he goes into really trimming the ribs, exactly what he's looking for. And you can get some knowledge there if you're looking to do some competition style ribs. But this is how I do it. So the first thing I like to start off with is the butt rub. Now this is mustard, vinegar, and spices. Some people will actually take mustard and slather it all over the ribs front and back and use that as the binding agent to kind of keep the rub intact, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't like doing it. So this is how I marinate now. See, I'm wearing gloves. I am touching all my rubs. When I get done, I will wash off my rubs completely on the outside so I'm not cross-contaminating anything. So I just open it up and start sprinkling it on. And make sure I get a nice lathering in there. Some people will just slap it on. Again, it's your preference. I just want to make sure my ribs front and back get the same treatment. So I'm gonna show you how I marinate one. I just repeat the process however many racks of ribs I'm cooking, and today it just happens to be 3. So the next I'm gonna go with is my John Henry's pecan rub. Again, the same thing. Now this one's sweet with just a little hint of pecan. So this one, see how that's gonna give it a pretty nice color. If you're cooking for comps, you want a mahogany red color. So now it's the squill's turn. And I'll put kind of the same, I guess they both got seasoned salt and stuff in them, but the flavor profile is a little different. And that's how I like my ribs set up. Now I'm just going to flip it over. I'm going to pick this one up, put it on top of this one. Just going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the rubs in the exact same order that I did on the front. Same thing, butt rub. Some people will think, well, why do you marinate the back of the ribs? I just had better results marinating the backs of the ribs. So that's why I do it. My John Henry's pecan rub. And yeah, I do use quite a bit of rubbing, you see, that's why I go through it pretty quick. And then the squill rub. Okay, so now you've seen how I do one, I'm going to do the other 3. Now, you want these to at least marinate for a couple hours. If you can, several hours. It is midnight. I'm going to get up at probably 6 in the morning and put these ribs on. And I'll go into the 3-2-1 method with you and how I do all of that. But so I'm going to get a good 5.5, 6 hours of marinating with the rubs on. Now, if you use rubs that have a lot of salt, you may not want to marinate them quite as long, because the salt, the longer it's there, it'll start kind of sucking all the moisture out. You do want some moisture left in your ribs. If you suck all the moisture out, it's going to be a dry rib. So I'll get back with you with the next step. I wanted to show you real quick this one step. This is what the ribs look like after they're marinated. Here's a little up close and personal look at the ribs. As you can see, kind of they're shimmering. This is actually the rub pulling a little bit of the moisture out. That's what you want to see. So what I'm going to do now is wrap the ribs up, put them nice and tight, put them in the fridge. Now what I'll do is, before I put them on the pit, I'll take them out about an hour before. I'll leave them covered, but I want to let the ribs come up to kind of room temperature, so that way they don't go into shock getting put on the pit. So that's all for tonight. I'll see you in the morning when I get ready to put the ribs on the
What up,
pit.
YouTube? Well, it's 6:30 in the morning. Barbecuing is a sport, so I know I look a little toasty, but just woke up. Gonna get ready to throw the ribs on the pit. I'm gonna go over how the pit, what I smoke with, and how I kind of set it up. So I hope you enjoy these next few steps. Alright, so this is what the ribs look like after they've been marinating a little over 6 hours. So as you can see, did render out some of the moisture, and I'm not a whole bunch, but you can see where it's kind of shiny. If at this point, if you want, you can always re-season. I'm gonna re-season lightly, but not too terribly thick. Now also one thing that I do is when I put in the smoker is I do use some apple juice. I put it in one of these throwaway aluminum tins. It doesn't take much, but that leaves some moisture here in the smoke box, just to another layer of insurance that the ribs do not dry out. Now what I'm going to do is go into just a little bit of the cook time and temp. Like I said earlier, I'm going to use the 3-2-1 method. I typically end up cutting it back a little bit, but basically the 3-2-1 method is 3 hours of smoke, 2 hours wrapped, and then another hour unwrapped. So it's a total of 6 hours for 3 racks of ribs. So the whole cook time in between, you know, me pulling them off and marinating them, which I'm going to show you the steps and what I use, because we're not done marinating them yet. We're not done adding the goodness to them. It's about 6.5, 7 hours. So some people might think, man, that's a little bit crazy. You're smoking ribs for 6 hours, man, that's just way too much. Well, it is what it is. It is what you got to do, or what I enjoy to do anyway, to smoke my meat. I'm a low and slow smoker. There's hot and fast cookers. It all just depends on what you like and your tastes. If you're going to do hot and fast, then obviously you would adjust your cook times, and I'll show you some signs as we get on with this of what to look for. The ribs are starting to get done, so that way you'll know what to look for. But I've just remarinated my ribs, got the Traeger getting up to temp now, so we'll be smoking here in just a minute. Okay, I'm out here at my Traeger. I got my feeder filled up with my pellets. What I'm smoking with is applewood pellets. It tends to set off the flavor of pork really, really nice. So I'm going to get that closed. This is something that you always just want to keep an eye on as you're smoking through the day. Now, I'm filming by myself today. Didn't want to wake my son up, so I'm going to open up the pit so you can see what we got going on, and then I'm going to close it, and we'll be good to go. Before I do that, I got my Traeger set to smoke. I know that's kind of hard to see, but it'll fluctuate between 160 and 180 degrees, which is perfect. The ribs are a thin cut of meat, so they do come up to temp a lot quicker than, like, say, smoking a brisket or something. But what you want to do is slowly rise that temperature in your meat as you're smoking it. And as you can see, the Traeger does put out some decent smoke. So this is what we got going on in the pit. That tin there, that is some apple juice. I keep that in there to keep some moisture in the pit as we're smoking them. And as you can see, I just threw them on, but you can see how shiny they're already getting. So that's the 3 rack of ribs and the Traeger. The next step I'll show you is in an hour. I do this twice. Every hour is I'll spray them pretty good with some apple juice, and that'll just help put some moisture back into the ribs. So I'll see you in about an hour. Alright, so here we go. We're about an hour in. We're actually an hour in. That's what they look like. And you can kind of see in spots they're looking a little dry, especially that one in the back. So I'm just going to get some apple juice in a squirt water bottle. Squirt them all up. Much better. So that's it. I got to do this 2 more times, and then it'll be on to the next step. So I'll see y'all in a little bit. So now what I'm going to do, they've been on for 3 hours. I sprayed them every hour with applesauce. So now I'm going to take the ribs off and get ready for the next step. So at this point, the ribs have just got some good smoke to them. I am going to leave my apple juice in there just because it'll be hot to take it out. But I'll see you inside for the next. Now, one thing I wanted to show you is on the bones right here and here. When you start seeing your ribs starting to get done, is this meat will basically start shrinking down these bones. That's a good indicator that they're done. These you see really have, except down here where they're pretty lean, they have no shrinkage, so they're not done. They just got a good smoke flavor to them. I didn't cook them with enough heat to get them done for long enough time. Now I have turned my Traeger up outside to 200 degrees, and that's how I'll finish the rest of these off. But now I'm going to go into the rub or the marinade that I use to finish these bad boys off. We start off with some parquet margarine or clarified butter, honey, brown sugar, and of course tiger sauce. Okay, now with the tiger sauce, this is going to give it the color. Now this does have some spice to it. Depending on how much you use, obviously it will be how much spice. Now an alternative, if you can't find tiger sauce or don't like tiger sauce, would be the Mayploy sweet chili sauce. This is not going to give it as the deep of the mahogany color, or is going to be quite as spicy. It doesn't have the kick to it. But for mine, we're going to use the tiger sauce. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to give them a bath in some clarified butter. Put some butter. But the honey, this does get messy, guys. Honey. Tiger sauce.
brown sugar. Now I don't know what style of barbecue this you would call this. I don't know if it's Memphis or Kansas City. But I'm just going to kind of pat it in. Get it rubbed in. And I'm going to flip them over. And even though there's not that much meat on the back, I'm going to do the same thing on the back. Now the tiger sauce is only sold at certain stores in my city, and it is sold where the hot sauce and pecani sauce is. Now that may be a little different where you live. You can buy it online, although shipping is kind of pricey. Magic here. Let's put in there. Now you flip the ribs back over. Scoop up some of this. Now I usually start with the ribs down and then do the tops, but since I was talking about the doneness, I did these actually backwards, so you wouldn't have this problem. For a last step is a little bit more apple juice. Then we're going to wrap them up in the foil. Now I will, when I'm done with the other 2 racks, I will wrap them with one more piece of foil to give them a good seal. That way whatever juices do come out of the ribs kind of steam the meat as they cook. So that'll get them a little bit more moist and more tender. So we'll see you in the next step. Okay, now we're back at the pit. Got it on. It fluctuates between 200 and 225, and that's fine for this step. So, just going to put them back on exactly how I took them off. How the ribs want to settle with the tops facing up, the bones facing down. So remember, this is the 3-2-1 method. So it was 3 hours of smoke. Now it's going to be 2 hours wrapped in the foil, and then we'll see their doneness when they're done with the foil. If I want to put them back on unwrapped for another hour. I typically don't have to. That last hour is for some people if they want to put barbecue sauce on them. I don't sauce my ribs. When you see me pull them off, you'll see what they look like. They look like they do have barbecue sauce on them. For all that goodness of the brown sugar and tiger sauce and butter, honey melt in there, it does look like it's barbecue sauce. So we'll see in a couple hours. Okay everyone, so I've taken them off the pit. Now, this step here you need to be really careful. They are still really hot. Not to burn yourself with the steam. So as you can see, look at all the juice that's ran out from these ribs. As you can see, the steam coming out. Okay. Now this here, this is what you want to see. See how the bones, the meat's basically pulled away from the bones, all the way, varying places along the ribs. That tells me that these ribs are done. So I do not need to put them back in. Now if I wanted to, I could throw them back on the pit, put some barbecue sauce on them, and let them cook off for a few more minutes. I don't sauce my ribs, so this is how they're going to be. So I hope you've enjoyed this video of Johnny Law Barbecue. I know it's been a long time coming. I do apologize. I do have another video planned up. Probably going to do it next week sometime. I'm going to revisit my brisket recipe and the little tweaks I've done to it, and give you some more tips and tricks. Hope you enjoyed this video. Look forward to seeing you next time.